abridged Christmas stocking. First thing you need to do, write on your template, check you have a pair. And by that I mean, if you're using the same fabric, cut it folded in two, right sides together or wrong sides together, so that you have a pair. If you're stitch and flip, then do your lining, lay them down, feet facing out or facing in, but it has to be a pair. Rough cut your wadding, lay it on top, lay your outer fabric on the plain side if you have a plain side, and then stitch and flip on the other one. But just spend a few minutes double checking that you've got a pair, because it's really easy to end up with two left or two right feet. And as you might guess, there is a reason why I'm telling you this, because yes, I have done it, and what was even worse, it wasn't the first one I'd done, so that was even worse. So so when I say rough cut, I'd say 1/2 inch margin all the way round, could be a little bit more, not sure. When I've finished, I shall draw around the template and use that as my cutting lines, and then if there are a little bird's nest at the beginning of each seam, it won't matter because it'll all be cut away. So I've taken the two longest strips and I've started towards the bottom of the toe, and then I'm just about 3 or 4 inches from the top of the back of the leg. If you want to mark it with a ruler, by all means mark it with a ruler. Roughly a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You could actually let have your stitch length just slightly longer, because it is just stitch and flip. It's not critical. It needs to be a small stitch. It's not like foundation piecing or anything like that. We've stitched, we're going to flip. Now you could press this if you wanted to press it with the iron, but to be quite honest, I've pressed this fabric earlier and I don't really think it needs pressing again. Finger pressing seems to be enough. So I've got a small piece of fabric that's just going to fit at that end. So I'm just going to put this on. That should be my toe. Remember this, I have got a seam allowance all the way around here. Okay. So I'm going to use some quite narrow strips now. Let's start there. I'm going to put it on pause now, and then I'll come back when this panel's finished. I've traced around the template with a Sharpie marker, not because that's my normal go-to pen, but I just thought it might be easier for you to see. Let's see where we are. Yeah, so there. So I'm just going to cut it out now, and then I shall come back. So I'm just going to do a simple zigzag overcast all the way around. You don't need to go across the top because we're going to add a cuff and binding. So just start at the back of the leg and work all the way around to the front. Just catch the edge of everything, just so that it doesn't fray. Just take your time over the seam joints. I have AccuFeed on this, which is similar to a walking foot. So just use a walking foot, don't worry. Whatever type of machine, whatever it is they call it, but the equivalent of. So I'm just going to pause again and I'll finish this. So to add the cuff, now I had written a 4-inch wide strip for the cuff, folded in half, but a 5-inch might probably be better. I'm not sure if you can see that. No, it's not far enough down. Right, let me just tilt the camera. So the cuff that I have is 2 1/4 inch. So yes, if you have a 5-inch strip folded in half, that would give you a length of 2 1/2. So that's probably 5-inch will probably be better folded. I just happen to have this lace border, whatever. I've no idea where it came from, but it's been quite useful. So to add that, I have laid the front and back together, right sides together, and I'm going to stitch about 5 inches, 5 or 6, at a quarter, just over a 1/4 inch. It probably is about a 1/4 inch to the top. I want to just sew the front seam together so that I can have one straight run around with the and it helps to go back to this. Let me just take that stitch out. I thought I'd gone back to straight stitch, but obviously I hadn't. I'll just remove that out of the way. Don't get confused. There we go, that's that gone. I thought it looked a bit wide actually. So now there we go. Yeah, that's definitely going to be 1/4 inch now. So I'm starting 6 inches below the top of the front of the leg. Just one little back stitch. Back tack, cut. Let's get rid of those threads. Don't want them. I'm going to open it out. I've got a nice flat surface to add the braid. Right. We'll try that way this time. So roughly.
Ian, pretend that you're still present and you didn't see me.
So again, I'm just attaching this, nothing special. It's all going to be caught into the binding. I'm going to open the seam when I come to it. There we go. Straight across. just going to trim that, and then I want to overcast again, just so that we don't have any raw edges. So go back to that. There we go. Now do the same the opposite side. It's all caught in now. So now right sides together and then all the way round. Just pop a few clips on, I think. Found this a little bit bulky for pins, so now let's get back to that stitch. Little back stitch. It's quite forgiving, this. If you really wanted to, I am actually going to stop in a moment. I'm going to add a toe. I'm just going to come down to the heel, and then I'm going to add a toe. I think it just needs the toe to make it look more like a stocking and less like a sock. So I'm going to just change the thread on the top. Let me just back tack there. Right. And I'm going to add the toe. There we go. So that's that. I'm going to just use some glue. Now normally you would Bonder web this, but because we're going to sew this within the seam allowance, I'm just going to use a little glue stick to keep it in place. There's that. I'm going to change the cotton. I shall come back once I've set up. Go back to pause. Right, for this I've used the regular zigzag stitch on the machine, just to show that it can still get a nice effect, just even if you don't have lots and lots of different stitches. Just by adjusting the length and the width of your zigzag, you can get quite a nice finish. Just gently around the curve. If you've got machine embroidery threads, by all means use those. Get a nice shiny effect. There we go. I'm just going to trim. Well, it doesn't look too bad at all, actually, I think. Just going to trim to make sure that the fabric fits the stocking. And then I shall just quickly zigzag around the edge again to overcast. Right, I'm just going to to make that a bit longer. There we go. It should be fine, this, because it's right inside the toe, so I don't think there'll be many gifts all the way down there, but you never know. Just find that end, get rid of that. Right, so we'll finish closing the stocking. Yes, I've changed the thread. Oh. I did the same again as before. I didn't turn the stitch back. There we go, we're back now. See if we can match up. That's better. We're into the same stitch. I'll just, that's it. Oh, just a one back tack. Okay. There we go, round we go. Probably a good morning's work. It's not a full day project, I don't think. Quite satisfying, actually. As long as you've made a pair and not 2 left feet or 2 right feet. Because then you should be making 2 pairs now. So. There we go. Now we need to just turn it through and add the binding. So I'm not snipping any curves, or in dressmaking we would snip into these, but I'm not going to. I'll just put this on pause while I turn it through. So I'm going to start at the centre of the back on the inside. Now if you've got a free arm, you might find it easier to sew on the free arm. So although I have the opening of the fabric to the centre, I'm actually going to start sewing just before the back seam. So I'm going to sew the folded binding. It's just a scrap of straight cut black cotton that I've got. It's possibly 2.5 inches ish. As I say, it was just a scrap, and I folded it in half, and it looks wide enough. Now then, I probably wanted to do that on the outside, didn't I? Right, I would normally have stitched that to the outside, but for today, I'm going to try doing it this way. I don't think it matters, we'll get away with it. Yes, I think I did stitch it to the... What I did yesterday is... Oh, sorry, on the workshop, I think I left the stocking turned inside out, and then I added the binding to the outside of the fabric to roll it round into the inside. But because I've turned it, I've actually confused myself, but it doesn't matter, I don't think. So what I'm going to do, I'm not sure how well this is going to show up. So what I'm going to do is open the seam that I had left. Although I started the fabric at the centre, I didn't start sewing until I was almost at the seam. So I'm just going to fold a triangle, which in effect would have been the 45-degree triangle that I would have cut off had I been attaching these two ends together traditionally. But because it's quite a tight gap, I'm just going to slide the incoming piece into this. I'm just going to snip off a touch. It doesn't need much coming off. Let me just be sure. I don't want it too short. So that's there. Just going to take about 1 centimetre off, maybe a little bit more, and then that shouldn't be too much bulk. There we go. So hopefully that will just lay flat within there. That's that. Here we go. Might need to take a little bit more off actually. I think. Does that need? Yeah, I'm just going to snip a smidge away. That's it. That should fit. There we go. And as I stitch the binding down, I shall decide whether I want to hand stitch that gap where the joints are. And then what I need to do before I do anything else is to attach the loops for hanging. So again, we're at the back, and so the loop's going to be on the outside. Okay. So I'm going to stitch the loop. All I've done, oh gosh, now then, I'm going to say it's probably slightly wider than 1 inch. Folded into half, and then half in, and then press them together, and I've stitched down either side. So I've laid one part of the loop that side of the seam, and this side, the other part. This, if I try to fold them together to stitch on that centre seam, with the best will in the world, even the super duper machines won't like it. So I'm just going to give it a little back tap. Oh, see, even this one's not that happy. There you go. Just take it slowly. Don't try to rush this. Just gently, gently. There we go. And what I'll do is, once I've covered this with the binding, what I will do is pull it up and just tack it together so that the loop stands rather than it just dropping down. I could probably finish this off in the machine, but I think I'm going to hand sew that, and I shall put a picture on later. If you have any questions, just let me know. Yeah, I'll hand stitch this down, and what I shall do when I come to this roll, I'll just put a few tacks in, and that'll be absolutely fine. Hope that explains, ladies. If not, just send me a message. Any questions? And thank you very much. Bye.